And greetings from Kotak Securities. We are delighted you welcome you to the webinar on Outlook on Capital Goods and Consumer Durable Sectors. I'll take a few minutes to introduce our guest speaker, Sanjeev, Senior Vice President, Fundamental Research. Sanjeev has been with Kotak Securities from past 15 years and has a total of 20 years of experience. He specialized in the sector of capital goods and consumer durables. I welcome you, Sanjeev.
Thanks, Kritika. Hello, friends. A warm welcome for all of you in this webinar on capital goods and consumer durables. I'm sure you are taking good care of yourself in these uncertain times. Uh, Today, I will be doing a presentation on the capital goods and consumer durables. It will be around 30 minutes, and then we can open up the session for the Q&A. So, without much ado, I'll start the presentation for on the capital goods. First, it will be uh, for 15 minutes. I'll kind of talk about the capital goods companies, and then around 15 minutes on the consumer durables. I want to restrict the one-sided talk as as less as possible, so that we can interact in terms of Q&A, which will be much more meaningful and value addition for all of you. So I'll go. Um, Starting with the basics of the capital goods industry, um, the sector capital goods companies are catering to the power sector and the industrial, defense, and urban infrastructure companies. So in an urban infrastructure, you have companies like Thermax and Ion Exchange, who do the water treatment plants and the sewage treatment plants. And in defense, you have companies like Bharat Electronics, BEML, Hindustan Aeronautics. It's a growing area where the government's focus is also there. In industrial sector, you have companies like Crompton Greaves, ABB, Siemens, Cummins, etc. And in power, you have primarily the BHEL, Areva T&D, GE Power, and other such companies. Now, if you look at the scope of work that these capital goods companies do, typically these are either manufacturers of products. For example, Cummins, they make DG sets or engines, or it could also be project execution services. For example, the Larsen and Toubro, it's mainly into project execution. And then there could be companies uh, who are mainly B2B. So as against the consumer sector, where it is mainly B2C, business to consumer. Here the capital goods sector is primarily business to business, and hence there's much less importance of brand, and most of the companies don't have pricing power. So that is a very big weakness in the sector. And government is the primary customer for all the capital goods companies. So if you look at the Larsen and Toubro, almost 80% of its orders are right now coming from the government sector. And the problem with government sector is that uh, they go for the lowest bidder, and to some extent in that case they don't take care about the quality of the bidders. And in such times, even the smaller players with big balance sheets, are able to bag projects by quoting very low prices. So that is something kind of weakness for the sector. uh, then managing working capital is very important in capital goods companies, because again, as I said, the government is the major customer, and the problem with government is that they take a very long time to meet their payments. So receivable cycle is very long. So any company that is able to manage its working capital well, is able to show good cash flow, that is the kind of companies in capital goods sector that we really prefer. And lastly, the sector is mainly domestic focused, and very limited amount of exports. Now let's go to the macro side of the capital goods companies. Uh, Here, a very important term in macroeconomics is the gross fixed capital formation. And what it means is that the amount of investment that is going into creation of fixed assets as a percentage of GDP. So the more the investment that is going into fixed assets, the more the creation of business for capital goods companies. So, for example, if a company is setting up a power plant, so that's a fixed asset that is created, and through this setting up of power plant, it will create orders for companies like Larsen and Toubro and BHEL and so on. So this is a very important monitorable that we always track whenever we look at the capital goods sector. And if you look at the chart, we have a comparison between India and China. So if you see the gross fixed capital formation as a percentage of GDP, for India it has come down from around 35% to now around 26%. From 35% in 2007 to 27% in 2020. As against that, the gross fixed capital formation for China has continued to go up. It has remained stable at a very high level of 40-45%. So that also is an indicator why our GDP growth has actually come down in recent years, while in the GDP growth in China has remained very strong. So what happens is that when you invest in a fixed asset, uh, it creates jobs, and those jobs lead to higher consumption. Higher consumption leads to further investment in fixed assets or creation of capacities, which in turn leads to more jobs and consumption. So it's a virtuous cycle that keeps on happening, and this is where the government is also focused on how to actually increase the gross fixed capital formation rate. And when this rate, that is the gross fixed capital formation, will start moving up, you will see that the focus will come to capital goods companies, as they will now look at more business in the coming years. The other thing that we have seen is the household sector fixed investment, which has dropped in recent years. So here also, most of the in last few years, what we have observed is that the household sector investment in fixed assets, in fact, real estate, has come down quite sharply, and also the overall job market for the labor has not been very good, and as a result, households are actually uh, reducing their savings and going for higher consumption. So as a result, there is less investment that is happening on the savings side, and most of the households are actually reducing their savings, and and so that is another factor why we are not seeing an increase in the GDP growth. Now, let's look at the industrial demand that is there. Industry capacity utilization has remained weak. Uh, if you look at the IIP growth, which was at 3 to 4% last 5 years, in FY20 it has become in the negative zone. And capacity utilization. So here also, the capacity utilization in FY20 has come down to 70%, as against 76, 78% in earlier years. So what this indicates is that there is adequate capacity already in the industry, and there is no real hurry to go and set up capacities, which would, and so this is a kind of negative, because unless corporate sector invests in new capacities, there will be no further business available for capital goods companies. So this is a negative. Now we all hear about investors and analysts talking about the capex cycle. They all wonder, when will the next capex cycle start. So just to give an idea, the last capex cycle started in 2004 and lasted till 2011. But the important thing to note here is that during this period of 7 years, the capex by BSE 500 companies rose almost 10 times. So that is the kind of explosion that happens during a capex boom. And this is that is why whenever you look at capital goods companies, you need to ensure that you are on the right side of the capex cycle. And now, if you look at the period from 2011 to 2019, it has been a period of weakness. The capex cycle has been stagnant, uh, and there is no fresh capacity expansion that is happening. And so we are seeing that the capital goods companies have actually underperformed during this period. We believe that we are at the cusp of a capex cycle. May not be in this year, but from next year, definitely we will start looking at companies going for capacity additions. So that will be a positive for capital goods companies. Coming over to the power sector, because it's a very big driver of demand for the capital goods sector. If you look at the power generation, the PLF, which is basically the capacity utilization of the existing thermal power plants, the PLF has continued to go down. So there is much less demand for power, and so investment in fresh power plants has started to come down. So between 2012-13 to 2016, the average addition of power generation capacity was in the range of 20,000, and now in FY20, the addition in power capacity addition has been only 6,000. So you can see that more than 50% decline has happened for power addition, and that is the reason why stocks like BHL, which used to trade at 250 to 60 rupees, now trading at 45 rupees, and still people are negative because the market itself for thermal power capacity addition has come down. On the other hand, there is growth on the renewable power sector, that is solar and wind power. While the solar power, there is a lot of growth, but most of the problem is that most of the solar panels are imported and nothing gets manufactured in India. So there's no value addition that flows to Indian capital goods companies. So this is actually the problem wherein thermal capacity addition is not happening. So no orders for companies like BHEL and Thermax. On the other hand, you have solar capacity which is growing, but the solar panels are completely imported. Now let's look at L&T's order book. We chose L&T because L&T is kind of a very diversified player. It is present in defense, it is present in power, it is present in hydrocarbons, electrical, India, Middle East, everywhere. So when you look at the L&T, you will get an idea about the growth of the power of the capital goods sector. Now, the key monitorable here is order book of Larsen & Toubro, and here we have seen that over the last 5 years, the order book has grown at a very modest pace of 5.4%. So that is not something to get excited about. At the same time, the revenue visibility, which is basically order book divided by annual trading sales, that has also actually declined in recent years. So the other factors that we need to consider in capital goods is the fact that projects business. A lot of companies like L&T is into projects business, but these businesses are very working capital intensive, and we have actually seen that happening in FY20, wherein the working capital to sales ratio for Larsen & Toubro has increased from 18% to 24%, and actually the cash flow generation has taken a huge beating. Then the projects or the contracts are either fixed price or they have price variation clauses. In fixed price, it's the project execution company has to take a hit in case prices of raw materials go up. So that is something that we need to watch out for. Raw material prices are mainly the steel and copper, and we have seen that recently there has been some easing of steel and copper prices, and that could be a positive tailwind for capital goods companies. And then accounting for projects, most of the capital goods companies are accounted on the basis of project completion methods. And finally, it's a sector where there is not much of brand power, pricing power is not there, so the competition is very intense. And hence, if you look at the margins remain in the range of 8 to 9 to 12%. That is the kind of range that even the good companies are able to manage. Now, what are the opportunities in the capital goods sector going ahead? In power sector, the nuclear power plants are being planned, almost 7,000 megawatt capacity. In power distribution sector, there is plan of complete smart metering across India. So that would be a very good thing. In power transmission, we have a lot of renewable energy capacity coming. So there is a green energy corridor transmission system that is being planned. On the water treatment side, Clean Ganga Mission. Also, there is a target to double sewage treatment in India. On the air pollution side, we have almost 40,000 megawatt of FGD systems which will get ordered out. So companies like Thermax, L&T, and BHL could benefit from it. And finally, defense. Defense is a very exciting area. Almost 70% of our defense equipments are imported, and we cannot continue with this kind of system. So we need to have our own defense manufacturing facilities, and the government is very focused on that. In the coming years, we definitely would see a lot of defense orders getting placed to private as well as the public sector defense companies. So to summarize, our outlook on the power sector, currently it remains weak because the corporate sector, it will be focused on cash conservation rather than going for capacity addition. Also, the deal flow will slow down because there's a reluctance on the part of clients to travel to work sites, and overall deal signings as well as order flow will slow down. So less orders for order intake for capital goods companies. That is a negative. Also, order flow from public sector units will continue, but it will again be at a much lower scale. So all in all, order intake and execution will remain weak in FY21. At the same time, as I said, vendors will be facing cash crunch, and companies like Larsen & Toubro as well as DHL, Thermax, they will have to support their vendors. So in that case, the working capital will also increase. This is the chart we have. As you can see, the capital goods sector was a strong outperformer between 2005 to 2009. But after that, it has been largely an underperformer as compared to the Sensex. So the key to capital goods companies is that you have to time it at the right time. It's not a compounding kind of sector. You have to get in at the right time and get out at the right time. So that is very important in capital goods companies. And finally, we come to the top picks that we have. We like Larsen & Toubro, upside of 26%. Cummins, we have a upside of 18%. Thermax, Kalpataru Power, almost 92% upside that we have, and Engineers India Limited. The one thing that we look at in capital goods companies that we prefer companies with strong balance sheets, and all these companies that we have listed have very good balance sheets, strong cash flow generation, and the valuations are also reasonable. So I will end the first part of the presentation, that's on the capital goods sector, and now I'll move to the consumer durable sector. So in the consumer durables, you have several products. So it can be further classified into consumer appliances. Consumer appliances can be classified into brown goods, and in brown goods you have products like microwave ovens and mixers. In white goods you have ACs, fridge, washing machines, and in consumer electronics you have products like TVs, mobiles, and consumer electricals includes products like wires, switches, fans, geysers, and lights. Now, if you look at the market structure, but before that, I'll speak on the various products. So, starting with the air conditioners, the overall market for air conditioner in India is around 15,000 crore. and it has been growing at a rate of 13% for the last 5 years. Uh, the main players are Voltas, Blue Star, LG, Samsung. The market leader is Voltas with almost a 24% market share. The important thing in room air conditioner is that we need to remember that only 6% of the households actually have room air conditioners, and this figure is very low as compared to the global average of 30%. And in fact, in China, it is almost 100%. So that gives us an idea about the kind of upside in growth that we have in the room air conditioner side. Uh, Coming over to the refrigerator side, in refrigerator market is again almost 25,000 crore. It has been growing at 14% CAGR for the last 5 years, and ownership in refrigerator is somewhat higher as compared to room air conditioners. The main players here is the Whirlpool, Godrej, uh, LG, and Samsung. And finally, washing machines. Washing machines is a much smaller market at almost 9,000 crore. And again, here the almost 13% of the households own washing machines, and the major players are IFB, Samsung, and LG. Almost 60% of the market is semi-automatic, 40% is automatic, and within automatic, there 40% is top loading, and the remaining is the front loading washing machines. So as I said, the TVs have the largest market size among the consumer durable products, and also the ownership pattern is also the highest in televisions. But it's a very consolidated market with LG, Samsung, and Sony being the market leaders here. There are no Indian companies, Indian brands which are sorry, which are which are very strong in the TV product category. Now let's look at the demand drivers. The main demand driver for consumer durables, in my opinion, is the increasing level of urbanization. So right now, the degree of urbanization in India in FY20 is around 30%. That is 30% of households stay in the urban areas. This figure was 20% 10 years back, and we are expecting that the degree of urbanization will only rise from here and will go as much as 40% in the next 10 to 15 years. So what happens is that as households move to the urban side, the demand for consumer durables increase because in a lot of families, husbands and wives both are working, so they need automation, and they need products like automated washing machine, microwaves, refrigerators to store food, and so on and so forth, as well as they need air conditioners to have a nice sleep. So this is a very important driver, and that is one of the reason we are very positive on the consumer durables, because uh, a degree of urbanization, it's an irreversible thing. India is going to urbanize in the coming future, and the demand for consumer durables will continue to rise only from here on. At the same time, as I said, market penetration. As I said, in air conditioners, only 6% of households are owning ACs. Only 20% of households are owning refrigerators. So again, there's a huge upside on so far as the market penetration is concerned. And thirdly, consumer confidence in India remains very optimistic. While near term, definitely because of COVID, it has taken a beating, but in the medium to long term, the consumer confidence is very optimistic in India, and that will lead to higher demand for consumer durables products. So the key success factors in the consumer durables is the branding. So we had a survey, and in that survey we found that the first thing that whenever a consumer enters a showroom, he asks for the brand. And that is the first thing that he uses for deciding on a particular company's product. So branding is very important in consumer durables. And then there are other factors like the after sales services, number of models that are available. The more the number of models, the better it is for companies. And also the consumer finance has now spread across India, and it is one of the key drivers in recent years. Also, energy efficiency. So, products like air conditioners, they guzzle of a lot of energy, and so buyers have now become quite conscious about going for products which are very energy efficient. So that is something that that is also driving. So if you look at inverter ACs, in the consumers are now going for more of inverter ACs because inverter ACs offer almost 20% higher energy efficiency as compared to normal ACs. Also, companies need to come out with latest design features. And here in the MNCs like Whirlpool, Samsung, and LG, which have operations across the globe, they have an edge over the Indian companies. Now I'll come to the contract manufacturing part. So contract manufacturing is something very much similar to the auto industry. In the auto industry, if you see Tata Motors or Ashok Leyland, they don't make everything that goes into an automobile. They outsource a lot of things. The same thing is happening in consumer durables as well, where companies like Voltas, Blue Star, LG, they want to focus more on brand building and marketing and R&D rather than getting stuck with manufacturing part. So this is a trend that we are seeing, that the manufacturing is now getting outsourced to companies who are focused contract manufacturers. And in this space, we have two companies like Dixon Technologies, which focuses on contract manufacturing of refrigerators, washing machines, and mobiles, as well as lighting products. And we have a company that is Amber Enterprises, which is purely focused on the room air conditioners and the refrigeration part. The other thing is that a favorable thing is that the government of India is really actually driving the Make in India thing, because if you look at our import basket after crude oil, electronics is the one of the largest import items that come into India. So the government is very focused on driving the Make in India theme, having a electronics manufacturing base in India. So all this is positive for the contract manufacturing industry in India. The government has also come out with various policies like Make in India push. It has increased customs duty on room air conditioners so that it is more sensible to manufacture ACs in India as compared to directly importing it from China or South Korea. The government has also reduced GST on TVs and cameras. At the same time, to incentivize manufacturing of TVs in India, the government has completely scrapped the 5% duty which was there on open cell import for LED TVs. So it's a very favorable situation, situation for the consumer durable industry in India. So what is the near-term scenario right now? As I said, the structural demand is very strong in the long term. However, the near-term demand will be weak because a lot of businesses, a lot of MSMEs are going through tough times, and the focus will be on cash conservation rather than spending on consumer durables. But that will be only a near-term phenomena. And also we are seeing that the inventory level is high in the system because the industry was expecting a good summer way back in March. However, once the lockdown came, they were stuck with the high level of inventory, and that inventory needs to be liquidated. So there will be intense amount of competition in the marketplace, and consumer durable companies will find it very difficult to take price hikes. In fact, they have not taken price hikes despite increase in costs like freight cost has gone up, and even the import duty has gone up for certain products. Finally, the fast-moving electrical goods like cables and wires, even these products are going through a bad phase because these are dependent on the real estate sector, and the real estate sector is going through a continued rough patch, and these products will take a longer time to recover. Now this is a chart of performance of the BSE Consumer Durable Index and the Sensex. So the sector is clearly a outperformer. It is a value creator, and it is a kind of a compounding sector. In fact, and I think investors can continue to stay invested in the consumer durable companies which have good brands and strong balance sheets, and they will continue to see the benefits of compounding in the sector. So finally, we come to the valuations part. So we have quite a few companies, but what we are seeing is that most of the sector companies command premium valuations, uh, and that is on account of the good visibility of long-term growth which is there. Uh, Also, the management of these consumer durable companies are proven. They are competent. They are ethical, and also these companies have a lot of brand value with them. So all these factors, in a way, they get a kind of valuation which is comparable to the FMCG sector also. So considering these factors, the current market prices of a lot of our consumer durable companies under coverage are trading above our target price, but we are not in a way negative. We are not. We would not advise the investors to sell the stocks in the sector because these are value creator stocks, and the best times for buying these companies is when there is a bit of a negativism in the industry. So I'll give two examples. First one being the period during April, when there was a lot of negative sentiment in the market, and and companies like Voltas, Blue Star, IFB, they had fallen quite sharply. And I think these are strong companies, these are good companies. That is the right time to accumulate or buy these companies. A similar thing happened 2 years back when there was news about high inventory in the system, and as a result, stocks of room air conditioning companies like Blue Star and Voltas, they had actually derated, but that was the right time to buy because these are long-term growth companies, and so what we would say is that yes, at this point of time, consumer durable stocks have run up. The near-term outlook is weak. Valuations are looking pricey, but these are value creator stocks, and you should keep these stocks on radar. And whenever the market comes down, these stocks could be accumulated. So I will stop here, and basically that's the end of the my presentation part. And now I think I'll hand over. We can now move to the Q&A session.
Thank you so much, Sanjeev. This was really insightful. I'd like now to introduce Rusmik Oza. He heads our fundamental research at Kotak Securities and has been with Kotak Securities from past 10 years. The response from the audience has been so overwhelming, and Rusmik will like to now moderate these questions. Over to you, Rusmik.
Yeah, thanks, Kratika. Thanks, Sanjeev, for the detailed presentation. I'm just actually, starting with the capital goods sector. Whatever questions have come up from the audience, I'm just running down one by one. First is, in case of power equipment, Sanjeev, which are the companies one should look at from in future whenever prices come down, or which are the companies to look into this space?
Yeah. So in the power equipment side, we are positive on Thermax. and they are mainly into the captive power plants and also into the FGD sector. Now, FGD is basically uh, uh, it's a product which is used for controlling air pollution that emerges from power plants. And what is happening is that almost 40,000 megawatt of plants are old in India, and they are polluting like anything. So the government has given them a mandate to install FGD systems and to reduce pollution. So a lot of these companies like NTPC and state utilities, they will be coming out with their tenders, and there are very handful of companies that can bid, like BHEL, L&T, and Thermax. And we believe that Thermax, given its good balance sheet, given its good management, and also there is upside from the current levels, that is a very good company to look at in the power equipment side. And then there are some MNCs companies like ABB and Siemens, which are also there, but the valuations are very high, and we also have a sell rating on them. So I would not be able to recommend those stocks. Um, in smaller companies, you can look at Voltamp Transformer, which is again a very good company. It's a cash-rich company. Almost 40% of the market cap is cash on the balance sheet, and a very good management. So in small companies, you can look at Voltamp Transformer. In mid, you can look at Thermax, and in the large side, maybe Larsen & Toubro.
Okay. There's one more similar question related to the same sector, Sanjeev. Is that recently there were some talks of curbing imports of gear equipments from China. Just wanted to understand, is it a big opportunity for some of the power equipment companies in India?
So actually, uh, I'm I would not be very excited because of this, because see, the power generation side, there is not much of investment anyway happening. As I said, almost 20,000 megawatt of yearly capacity addition has now come down to 5,000 megawatt. So now all the power generation equipment are either going to BHEL or Larsen & Toubro. Anyway, so there is no Chinese companies that are there. But some Chinese companies could be in the power transmission side, like in transformers or substations. Here, if there is a ban on import from China, maybe companies which are present in the space, like ABB or Siemens, which are mainly into power transmission side, those could be beneficiaries. But as I said, these two companies are trading at very high valuations. Are not We would not be able to recommend them. But these two companies could be beneficiaries.
Okay, okay. There's one question, Sanjeev, on this transmission companies, KEC, Kalpataru. What is your take on those companies, and what kind of upside we are looking in these stocks?
Yeah. So the in the power transmission sector, again, what we have seen is that power transmission actually investment happens in correlation to power generation capacity addition. So in recent year, as the generation capacity addition has come down, even the investment in power transmission has started to slow down. But these two companies, they are actually pretty diversified, and in fact, KEC has been able to reduce its dependence on transmission side quite significantly in recent years, and is now moving very fast on the railway side. Uh, Railways as well as solar power. So we like both these companies, and their order book is also quite good at this point of time. Uh, Valuation is also in the mid to late single digits, which makes us much more comfortable, even if there is a bit of a slowdown in the transmission side. And especially Kalpataru Power, as we said, is trading at 6 times 1 year forward earnings. So we have almost a 92% upside from current levels. Also in Kalpataru, just a day back, there was a positive news that there a transmission project is getting sold off to Adani's. So that will get funds into the company. Uh, in fact, the company is looking at becoming debt-free in a year's time. So these are the things that we are looking very positively. And both these companies, KEC and Kalpataru Power, we are quite positive on both.
Okay, okay. Sanjay, one of the audiences asked about solar business. So you had mentioned that India imports a lot of solar. So does any company benefit on it, or do you have any view on any company which does projects on the solar side?
Yes, so in the solar side, we have which is a recently listed company that is Sterling and Wilson. uh, Sterling and Wilson is a Shapoorji Pallonji Group company. Uh, they are quite large. In fact, they are in the top 10 in solar EPC, and they have presence across the world. They have one of the largest projects running in Saudi Arabia, which is one of the largest single site solar installation. However, there was a bit of a problem with this company in terms of wherein they were supposed to bring some funds from the promoters into the company, and that didn't happen. So the stock got derated. Now slowly they are getting funds into the company, and the balance sheet is also now turning a bit stronger. We are watching this company the day they are able to fulfill the requirement that they and the promise that they have made to shareholders in terms of bringing the 2000 crore from promoters into the company. This company can look much better then. Until then, we are a bit cautious because of what happened in the past about this company. Other than Sterling Wilson, which is focused purely on solar, there are other companies which are diversified and have some element of solar power in their overall revenue mix. So these are companies like Techno Electric or KEC, but their presence in solar is much smaller at like 5% or 7%, not really material. So one should be watching maybe Sterling and Wilson about for the solar sector investment.
Okay, thanks, Sanjay. There's one question on the water treatment. Is there a big opportunity in this space, and are there any companies which are big in this water treatment business?
Yeah, so there are two, three companies uh, focused are Ion Exchange and VATech Wabag. And Thermax also does water treatment, but it is on the industrial side. So this is a very good space actually because uh, as urbanization goes up in India, the demand for clean water as well as sewage water treatment will only increase, and the government is focus is also that to have a Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. So investment will be there. But the problem is that most of this business in sewage and water is basically municipal business. So you have to deal with government entities, and then there are these are projects which sometimes take longer time, and payments also come with a delay. So any company that is able to manage these things can do well. In recent times, we have seen that Ion Exchange has done quite well. It is if it can clean up its balance sheet and and close down its loss-making consumer water treatment business, it can be a very good candidate. So, and it is also available at good valuation. So that is one stock that you can watch out for in the water treatment side.
Okay. Uh, One or two, three questions, or on this margin side, Sanjeev, how do you look at companies from a margin perspective in this capital goods space, considering the working capital and because of this stretching of working capital now?
So margins will be in pressure in FY21, mainly because margin is also a function of the top line, and Q1 April was completely the work was as good as zero. Uh, in May, maybe the execution rate came to around 30-40%, and in June it came to around 50-60%. So in all probability, most of the capital goods companies will have lower revenues in FY21. So going by their fixed cost structure, the margins will be under pressure. Only thing is that because the commodity prices have come down, so that could be a bit of a tailwind. But margins in all probability will be under pressure. The other thing is that there will be much more competition in the marketplace for orders. There will be fewer orders, and competition will be much more. So I think FY21 margins in all probability will be on the lower side. Also on the working capital, as I said, they have to support their vendors, and so they will allow longer credit period to their vendors, and even the government I think with the way the fiscal math is looking, the government will also be under pressure how they are able to pay contractors. So on both the sides, in the near term, margins as well as working capital would be under pressure for capital goods companies.
Okay. Uh, Sanjay, there have been some couple of questions on the defense side. I'm just clubbing them. So, how do you see, companies benefiting from defense orders, considering that this ongoing India-China border tension that is going on? If you can just explain.
Sure. So the defense sector is a it's quite exciting sector. As I said, India imports almost 70% of its defense equipment requirements. We cannot continue with this. This is not sustainable. So we need to have our own R&D, our own defense manufacturing base. So the government has realized that, and and so, uh, and especially after this Indo-China border clash, we believe that the government will be in a fast-forward mode to place orders. Uh, while this is a positive, what we have seen in the past is that the government comes into action mode only when there is some kind of geopolitical risk. After that, again, the order flow slows down. I hope it doesn't happen this time. So we expect a good amount of business, especially in the submarine side, that could get placed to companies like Larsen and Toubro. Then Hindustan Aeronautics can benefit from orders for Tejas Mark 1. Also for helicopter orders, HAL can be a big beneficiary, because in India there is only one company that makes fighter aircrafts, and that is Hindustan Aeronautics. So if the government really goes ahead and starts placing orders, then these defense PSUs like Hindustan Aeronautics, Bharat Dynamics, Bharat Electronics, and Cochin Shipyard, these could be big beneficiaries. But a lot of these companies are not under our coverage. We currently have Bharat Electronics and Cochin Shipyard under coverage, and we have positive rating on both. In Bharat Electronics, however, the upside is not there, but in Cochin Shipyard there is almost 74% upside, and the valuation is also at around 8 to 9 times, which is quite attractive at this point.
Okay. I'm coming down to some stock specific, questions which have come up. If you can just in short explain the view, like two questions to start with is L&T and GMM Pfaudler.
Yeah. So L&T, it's a very large company, and just to give an perspective, L&T is at 100 level. then the second company will be at 20 level. So that kind of differential is there between L&T and the other second level capital goods or construction companies. So for L&T to grow on this kind of base will be much more difficult. And so we believe that FY21 will be a challenging year for Larsen & Toubro. Um, However, as I said, good companies you will always find during challenging times, because that is the best time to, when the valuations are also favorable. And at this point, we find that the valuations in Larsen & Toubro are quite attractive. If you go back to last 10 years, rarely the stock has traded below 16 or 17 times. Right now, we see that Larsen & Toubro is trading at almost 13.5 times on a FY22 basis, which we believe is very good. And we have a target price of 1200 also on the company. So almost 30% kind of upside that we have. On GMM Pfaudler, GMM Pfaudler is kind of a monopoly in glass-lined containers. This company has, the stock has done phenomenally well. Last 2-3 years, it has kind of got re-rated. However, post this kind of run up, we don't see much of valuation upside from current levels in GMM Pfaudler. So, it is a MNC stock. It's owned by a German private equity company. Um, so valuations may not correct, but they may not go up further. So I would say that if you are already holding GMM Pfaudler, you can continue to hold. There is no problem. It's a great company. And in case the private equity player who owns GMM Pfaudler decides to sell it, then again you can get a strategic premium also whenever that sale happens. So you can hold on to the stock, but I would not recommend buying aggressively at the current level because of the high valuation.
Right, right. Another two companies, if you can just quickly give your view. One is Polycab, and other is little not capital goods, but a power company called Tata Power.
Okay. In Polycab, they are mainly into wires and cables. Uh, but at the same time, so if you look at the wires and cables market, it has been going through a slowdown phase last 4-5 years, because uh, these are mainly used in real estate construction. And last 5-6 years, the rollout of real estate projects has slowed down. And however, Polycab is a new player, and through strong brand building and ad campaigns, they have been able to garner market share. So they have been able to grow at a much faster rate as compared to Finolex Cables and Havels. Uh, so we like the company, but if you look at the valuations, we don't see much value at this level. In fact, our target price indicates a 15% downside from current levels. So while we are positive on the company, but there is not much of upside. In fact, there is downside, and so investors can look at declines from the current levels. The other stock is on Tata Power. Tata Power, we are positive on the company. Actually, the problem with this company is that their largest project is actually loss making, and that is Mundra Ultra Mega Power project of 4,000 megawatt. So they are actually in a litigation between the buyers, which are the state discoms, and the Tata Power for higher tariff. Uh, they have a strong case, that is Tata Power, for a higher tariff. Uh, in case that comes in Tata Power's favor, it will be a big positive, because this largest project can then become profitable. At the same time, we are also seeing that the owners, that is Tata Sons, are actually investing into the company. That is another sign of confidence that the promoters have shown. So, and the valuations are also quite decent at around 10 or 11 times. So we are actually positive on Tata Power, but you have to remember that the power sector is not really a value creator for investors in the past also. So look at it more as a tactical kind of investment rather than a long-term compounding kind of investment.
Thanks, Sanjeev. There are a few more companies, but I'll move on to the consumer durables, and if time permits, we can again come back to stock-specific questions. There's one question from the audience saying that if AC penetration is only 6% in the country, what steps or what measures will be required for that penetration to go up, and which company one should look at investing in the air conditioner space?
Yeah, so it's a good question. If you look at India, uh, the main problem in India has been, at least till some year back, was a lack of power. Uh, but after this government has come, this government has focused on rural electrification, and now we understand that almost 99% of our villages are electrified. So there is spread of power, and we have seen that availability of power has a very strong correlation with the demand for consumer durables. Uh, so we expect going ahead that this ownership of room air conditioners will only go up. Also, if you see, uh, the average area that average residential sizes of area is also going up. So earlier you had 1 BHK or 2 BHK. Now buyers are have becoming more affluent. Disposable income is going up, so they are going for the bigger houses, and so you will have more number of rooms, and hence the demand for ACs will also go up. Second thing is schools and colleges. Even these kind of institutions will now start to have ACs in the coming years. So there is a lot of humongous kind of possibilities that is available. And if you just look at our comparison between India and average globally, not even China. In India it is 6%, and world average is 30%. In China it is almost 100%. So I think there is a strong case for ACs to actually go up in terms of ownership pattern. Here we will prefer company like Voltas, because it's the market leader. It has presence across India, and not just focused on a one particular region, but across the country. Uh, Third, because its balance sheet is very strong, so it can continue to invest in brand building and coming out with new products. And fourth, Voltas is now emerging as a complete consumer durable company. So, for example, they have tied up with Beko, which is a Turkish company, to launch refrigerators. So, all in all, we believe that one company that can really give a that is already giving a run to the MNCs is Voltas. And for long term, definitely you should invest in this company. You can alternately invest in contract manufacturers of room air conditioners. So in that, we have one company under our coverage, that is Amber Enterprises. Here also, as I said, a lot of these companies are outsourcing manufacturing to contract manufacturers, and Amber Enterprises is the kind of market leader in this space. So you can look at investing in Voltas and Amber Enterprises.
Yeah. Thanks, Sanjeev. I think there were some questions on this contract manufacturing, and you already talked about Amber Enterprises. There's one more question on Dixon. The stock is almost at new 50-week high. One should look at that stock at current levels, or maybe what could be the levels one can look at entering?
Yeah, so Dixon is another very good company run by very good people, uh, very competent management, very visionary management, and they are also benefiting from the focus on Make in India. So this is kind of a if you look at India, uh, we the heart of any television is the LED panel, And here there are only 2-3 manufacturers in the world, in China and Taiwan and South Korea, uh, and we have to import it into India. So going ahead, there is a kind of a expectation that there could be some company in India which will kind of emerge and which can become really big 10 years, 15 years down the line. I think Dixon can be one such company. It is a very good company, and uh, have a strong balance sheet. There is no debt on the balance sheet. Even the return on capital employed is upwards of 20%. So they are a very efficiently capital allocator company, and hence the valuation has also become now premium for the company. In the last fiscal, they reported very great numbers. Now they are talking about also making sets for Geo actually. The digital sets for Geo. That is the opportunity that is coming. Then they are also going into medical equipment like COVID testing sets. Also, the order is coming to them. So all in all, the outlook in the company is very good. But again, as I said, you should look at buying the stock on declines.
Okay, okay. One basic question, Sanjeev, one of the audiences asked is most of the price targets in case of our stocks which you have mentioned in the presentation, price targets are way below the current market price, and why are we suggesting buy? If you could just clarify.
Yeah, so we are not suggesting outright buy because, as I said, there has been some run up in the stock prices in recent weeks. Uh, what we are saying is that will and actually our target prices, uh, we expect very weak Q1 numbers and maybe Q2 numbers. However, if we are able to get out of this situation, that is, the Indian economy is able to recover faster than what we believe, then our target prices will go up. So, for example, if you see in recent today's newspaper itself, the collections for NBFCs have started to look much better. So that is a kind of signal that the economy is now coming back. So we'll again revisit actually our targets and our earnings when we hear from the management about their after their Q1 numbers. And in all probability, if there is strength in the demand, then definitely we can look at much higher target prices. But again, these are short-term kind of thing. If you are an investor who is looking at long-term wealth creation opportunity, then you should take a 3-year, 4-year kind of a time frame. And if that is the kind of outlook that you want to take, then you can definitely look at buying these stocks on declines, not the current levels, maybe on declines, because the market can correct from these levels. And at that point of time, it can be a very good idea to buy these stocks. So that is what we are trying to say.
Right, right. Some two, three stock specific questions, maybe, then we can wind up. View on KEI Industries, Apar Industries, and GE Power.
Uh, on KEI Industries, we are very positive. It is one of the actually best performing company in the industrial space in the last 5 to 6 years. It has delivered very good set of returns. And the good thing is that in February, March, they were also able to raise funds at a much higher price of around 500. So we have a situation where the stock price has come down, but the balance sheet has actually improved. So we find the valuation quite attractive at this point of time. We have been meeting the management. We have even hosted them in our conferences. So we are quite comfortable with the management as well. We are positive on the valuation as well. So you can look at buying KEI Industries. Uh, the other stocks, sorry, which was the other one?
Apar Industries.
Apart. Okay, APAR we don't have much of view. The thing being that it's a kind of a diversified product company. They have transformer oil. They make power cables. They make power conductors. So it's a very diversified commodity kind of product business. Uh, we would so what happens is that one commodity could be doing well, the other commodity is going down. So the numbers are quite all over the place. It's very difficult to take a bet on one particular product. That happens in APAR. So we are not very kind of a positive on APAR. We of course we have not studied it also as much, but on the face of it, not very positive on the company.
Okay. Considering the time constraint, Sanjeev, I'll stop here. I have mostly tried and covered maximum number of questions which were there on the panel. That's it from my side. Kritika, you want to just conclude, or Sanjeev, if you want to conclude? Thanks.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you, Rusmik. Sanjeev, you want to say anything?
Yeah. Actually, I want to thank everybody for joining us for this webinar. In fact, we greatly appreciate the kind of inputs that you all have given. It only makes us do much better, come out with better calls, and serve you in a much better way. And so, thank you so much, and do take care of yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you, Rusmik. It was a very insightful session. It was quite in depth, and I'm sure everyone have enjoyed listening to your views. On behalf of our participants and Kotak Securities, I'd like to thank you for taking out your time and sharing your insights with us. Thanks to our audience as well.